Dude, I stubbed my toe so hard before this, I can feel it in my chest. What's going on, WrestleTalk friends and fans? I am the world's sleepiest luchador, Tempest, and I am here to bring you this week's edition of the WrestleTalk Recap. There were a lot of very high highs and a lot of very low lows this week in pro wrestling, so let's get things started off real quick with the match of the week. The match of the week this week might be the start of a bit of a trend here, as it comes from the G1 Climax tournament, and it is Tetsuya Naito versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. This was the main event of night 2 of the G1 Climax 30 tournament, and it was just absolutely excellent. Tetsuya Naito really coming into his own as IWGP champion here, getting a win over perhaps his biggest rival in his entire career, Hiroshi Tanahashi. The show of the week is also from the G1 Climax tournament, as it is day 3. This show was absolutely stacked, with Will Ospreay taking on Tomohiro Ishii and Kota Ibushi taking on Jay White in the main event. Not to be outdone, the card also featured Jeff Cobb versus Shingo Takagi and Taichi versus Minoru Suzuki, rounding out an excellent card that you absolutely need to go out of your way to see. There were some pretty big news stories this week in pro wrestling, but the biggest, of course, is the passing of Road Warrior animal Joe Laurinaitis. Of course, our hearts go out to all of the friends, family, and fans of Mr. Joe Laurinaitis, and we hope that you are all doing as best you can during these difficult circumstances. In more difficult news, there have apparently been outbreaks of COVID-19 at both AEW and WWE, with NXT being hit especially hard and AEW losing Lance Archer and Ben Carter. Also this week on AEW Dynamite, Cody made his return, sporting an all-black look with a new black haircut. Switching gears to talk about this week's shows, it kicks off with Monday Night Raw. Fucking slapjack. I'll be completely honest, this was one of the worst Monday Night Raws of all time, and anyone only wants to talk about Retribution, including us here at WrestleTalk. I believe I said in one of my articles this week on WrestleTalk.com that it once seemed incomprehensible that the WWE writing team would once give Stone Cold Steve Austin the names Chili McFreeze, Ice Dagger, Fang McFrost, Otto Von Ruthless, but now you can totally see it happening, with names like T-Bar, Mace, and Slapjack being given to those members of Retribution. On a more positive note, Ring of Honor returned with their Pure Tournament with 2 more excellent matches. As we said, NXT was hit particularly hard by this outbreak of COVID-19 at the Performance Center, with the Women's Battle Royal being the best example of that. Many of the participants were just trainees from the Performance Center that really had no right being on TV yet. Candice LeRae won the #1 contender Battle Royal, and she will face Io Shirai for the NXT Women's Championship at NXT TakeOver 31. Then in the main event, Kyle O'Reilly won the Gauntlet Eliminator match, becoming the #1 contender for Finn Balor's NXT Championship. This of course means that the two will face off at NXT TakeOver 31. This week's AEW Dynamite was not very good. It was very much impacted by the COVID-19 test of Lance Archer, causing much of the show to be changed around. With Lance Archer out of action, Jon Moxley defended the AEW World Championship in an impromptu match against Eddie Kingston. The match itself was good, but the rest of the show left a lot to be desired. This show saw the debut of Miro in ring, and it was not a good match at all, and it appeared that Miro may have injured himself. We will have to wait and see to know for sure.
Screaming at him that he could never take his place at the head of the table. I mean, how is this feud this good? Everything about it so far has been absolutely spot on, and we got just a taste of the physicality Roman could be bringing on Sunday, and I cannot wait for it.
Now in its little crammed up little section, we've got the G1 Climax report. We had 3 days of G1 Climax action this week, and of course you can check out our reviews of those shows right here on Wrestle2. This week kicked off with night 2 of the G1 Climax tournament, where Juice Robinson beat Yoshihashi, Toru Yano beat Sonata, Kenta beat Haruki Goto, Zack Sabre Jr. beat Evil, and Tetsuya Naito beat Hiroshi Tanahashi in the main event. Then on night 3, the best show of the week, Jeff Cobb was able to beat Shingo Takagi, Kazuchika Okada beat Yujiro Takahashi, Taichi had an upset win over Minoru Suzuki, Will Ospreay beat Tomohiro Ishii, and Jay White was able to beat Kota Ibushi again. Then on the 4th night of action, you had Haruki Goto beating Sonata, Toru Yano beat Hiroshi Tanahashi, Juice Robinson beat Kenta, Evil defeated Yoshihashi, and Tetsuya Naito picked up another win over Zack Sabre Jr. All good shows, you should check them all out. And of course, make sure you go over to WrestleTalk.com to check out all of our latest written features, including my latest list of the 10 best Raw moments of the 2010s. Back over on YouTube, you can check out Adam Blampier's latest list on pro wrestling, the 15 greatest wrestling entrances of all time.
Crowd while the Shield was still sucking on their mother dog's 8 nipples. No, you animate that, Rich. You animate that.
And right here on Wrestle2, you can check out the new Quizlemania champion, Louie's interview with Matt Sydal, where they talk about that botch.
The ring is very unforgiving, but compared to cement, it's extraordinarily forgiving.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had my fall on to the outside or to not inside the ring, it would have been, people would be wondering if I was getting up from that.
Also here on Wrestle2, you will find all of WrestleTalk's G1 Climax coverage, all of which you might find this little punum. It was a big week for Parts Unknown, as we got the latest edition of No Rolls Barred of Crisis Between Worlds. We also got Adam Blampier's latest booking video where he books what happens when Vince McMahon retires.
I mean, let's say retires. Ollie is very clear he wants this video to be about when Vince retires, but he won't retire. But it is a bit ghoulish. So when he retires.
And finally, you had Quizzlemania 19, where a new champion was unfortunately crowned. In other happenings around the channel, it was revealed that Mr. WrestleTalk was actually Luke Owen. Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Because you were Luke the whole time, weren't you?
Mate, look at this dickhead, he fell for it.
Coming up this week on WrestleTalk, we have the latest edition of Calling Spots. We, of course, are alternating weeks between Quizzlemania and Calling Spots for any unaware, and we will have more coverage of the G1 Climax and live coverage of Clash of Champions coming up this Sunday. And that just about wraps it up for me with another edition of the WrestleTalk recap. Make sure, of course, to give this video a like, give us a subscribe, and ring that bell. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Our Twitter is @WrestleTalk_TV. Our Instagram is @WrestleTalk.official. You can follow me on Twitter @TempestWT, and I will see you next time.